We are live. So welcome to Heller Barnes, and we are having we're in the Christmas season here, the holiday season, and Johnny has been so jolly. It is awesome. So Johnny, how you been doing? Good to see you again this week. What's happening?
Humbug.
Yeah, perfect.
All is well. Actually, I'll just, my sister, my lovely sister, sent us a beautiful wreath which arrived yesterday. It's gorgeous, and we put some lights on it. So my first Christmas decoration is finally up, and I think today or tomorrow I'll go buy a Manhattan $200 Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, oh, okay. Well, yeah. Actually, we put some lights up on the house here this last weekend, and then found out one of the strings didn't work. You keep those from year to year, so now we have a run out to Home Depot to get some more lights for this year. But anyway,
I
we have
picture
some
you in
lights
one of
up.
those suburban movies with the families fighting over who has the bigger light show.
Well, we're not that kind of couple. We would do that. I would do that. I wanted to get the little
Yeah,
thing that projects on the house that shows Star Wars and shows, all sorts of Santa things. And Lisa's like, no, because she's a traditionalist. So anyway, she wants lights the way anyway. So, but it's fine. It's just the only thing is then I have to climb up on a ladder and put the darn things up and take them
yeah.
down. And I just want to do the cheap and simple way of projecting with one little thing. And then I don't have to do anything with the thing. Hi, hey, by the way, do we have a guest today?
Yes, by Sherry Galpert says she can't hear anything. Just so you know that.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, so maybe we'll
Let's
get Jason
see.
out there.
So Sherry, I mean, let
Hang
me.
on, Eric. I'll introduce you in a second. I'll make sure everybody can hear.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah,
mute
yeah,
her.
yeah. So all my indicators here show that we. So let me see. Red lights rule. Also,
Lisa can hear us.
So Lisa, I'm going to ask my wife a question on chat.
Yeah.
Lisa,
We'll pretend Eric isn't staring at us.
obviously you hear us. So she said red lights rule, so I have to assume she's not in the room
Yeah.
with me. She watches. She's my third eye that's out there on her computer making sure, hey, I can't hear Johnny, or Johnny's not pretty enough. Is that
I get that a
I
lot.
usually
Yeah.
Johnny is way too quiet. Okay, cool. Good to know on that one. So we'll make Johnny.
That's a first.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring Johnny up, and I'm gonna bring
All
up
right.
Eric. Hey,
Well,
Eric.
let's say hello to Eric and see if we can. This is Eric Jason Martin, ladies and gentlemen. Sherry still
Hello.
can't hear us.
Can you hear me?
Um, can you hear Eric? Eric, say hello to us.
Hello. It's great to see everyone and hopefully be heard.
Yeah, we have some. We never have issues. It's got to be Martin's fault.
Well,
Um,
and also note in Southern California, there's a windstorm today, which is we get these in the fall season where we'll get gusts up to 60 to 70 miles an hour. And today is one of those days. And therefore, even though I have fiber, someplace there's a wire that runs all the way back to someplace. And so Eric is good, Lisa says. And Johnny, go ahead and talk a little
all
bit
right,
again.
Lisa, apparently you're the only ears that are
Yeah.
hearing anything. Am I loud enough now? Because I will shout.
Well, and the funny,
I'll scream this whole.
but Lisa
damn
is
movie.
on her own computer, so oh, never mind. Sherry
Oh, okay.
says it was me.
Oh,
Sorry. Okay, Sherry, thank you for letting us know. Okay.
our technical difficulties are audience related.
So Eric, Johnny, how did you
Yeah.
meet Eric? Can you tell us about that?
It was Fleet Week. But,
You
and
didn't
he
kiss
looked
him,
so
did
good in his navy pants. We met. Like I've met so many going through. While we have a solitary business in our booths, we're very big on community and talking. So we met probably at one of the many APAC Audi weekends here in New York City. And we hit it off because you can't tell by looking at him, but he's wicked. Yeah, and he was kind enough. He's been my friend. We got to go. I went to L.A. I can't remember when it was before COVID. So 2018,
Like 17 or
19,
18. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
16
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And at that
Yeah.
time, Eric Jason Martin was working at Universal Studios, right? No, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I
Yeah.
forgot the capacity, but I
I was a
met him there,
casting
and we
director at
were.
the time. Yeah.
What were you doing?
A casting director at the time.
So
And we had
he
just
didn't give
opened
me a
something
job
new.
as a casting director, which he probably could have done, but he did get me into the Harry Potter thing for free. So it was a trade-off. I asked for a gig, and instead he put me on a fun ride that flies around. It was a great day. I still remember, it was just a fantastic. I was staying at Scott Brick's, house, walked over to Universal, and we had a fantastic day, and since then, we've been, great friends. Eric did give me a job in, I think, Acadia. I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
My
so,
debut novel. You were a part of it.
yeah, see, I've been instrumental in Eric's success. Yeah.
What do you mean your novel? What do you mean? So you wrote a novel? I mean, for perspective, I thought all you did was talk into a mic. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
you'd think at a first that he's got a face for radio. He's a narrator, and I do, and that's sort of my bread and butter. But in addition to that, I also direct. I produce giant multicast audio projects, and I write, and I'm now a published author,
That's great. I'm gonna take this
a
step by step.
best-selling author, I might add.
Best-selling, are
Um,
you?
But
yeah, yeah, it's on Audible. Yeah,
wow, how cool is that?
I'm fairly. I mean, it's all right. It's
It's
fine.
better than the alternative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
You don't
I'm the
wanna read this,
opposite.
do
Yeah,
you?
no one will read my writing, and no one could read my writing. But that's a different discussion. All right.
You guys wanna buy a nice set of encyclopedias? Um, when when we should go over this, step by step so that, our viewers and listeners can learn more about Eric. And it's Eric Jason Martin, because there's an Eric Martin who's in the music industry who's not this Eric Jason Martin is this guy,
Yeah,
my friend.
exactly. The lead singer of Mr. Big,
Yeah,
not me. Yeah,
yes. So, Eric Jason Martin, how did you tell me so you grew up where?
in Chicago. Started off
That's
in
where I grew up.
Chicago. Yeah, sorry I missed you.
Yeah,
Um,
where in Chicago did you grow up?
like northwest suburbs, like Hoffman Estates, Schaumburg, out there.
Oh, I was
Um,
a Lombard boy.
oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, amazing town, right? But I lived there until I was 9, and I was there long enough that I no longer want to experience weather. So I moved to sunny California, and I've been here ever since. Yeah, a few years in San Francisco, and now here in LA ever since I was like 13. But ever since I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be an actor because I was always, even before that, I was always doing voices, and I had these like Disney records, and I would ape the just if there was a Donald Duck, I would try to do that voice, and or whatever. But I would
Yeah.
memorize what I heard on the and repeat it back. Turns out there's you can make a career in that, but it took a while to get there.
Did you go right from college or whatever to audiobooks, or what steps did you take before you hit the, voice market?
Yeah, so I went to UCLA as an actor and playwright, and those things don't pay the bills, at least not immediately and consistently. And so I tried to figure out a path, a working path in the creative arts. And so my path, I became very interested in Disney and what they did, and I love telling stories in three-dimensional space. Um, so I focused on Imagineering, and did my senior thesis on that, wound up working for and became an Imagineer for 3 years.
Well, can you
Worked
explain Imagineer for us?
They are the people who create sort of there were Walt's elite core of theme park designers that created all the theme park, right out in
Oh,
Disneyland, Disney World, and around the world.
that's called an
So
Imagineer?
Imagineer,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
By the way, I went in a prior career. I worked for that division. I helped develop
Mm.
a spreadsheet that helped them build the Disneyland in France. On the
Oh,
engineering
yes.
side, I was part of I was the lead to make sure that everything could be scheduled from beginning to end in France. Anyway, so I've been in the Imagineering in Burbank. I've been in their
Yeah.
kind of I don't know. It's their warehouse that stores prototypes of the rides, like the car that would go on a roller coaster. It was built there, and you would see the prototype and the final one, and all the little where they make stuff, and then they keep it forever in case maybe it'd be helpful for something in the future. It's crazy,
Yeah, yeah, it's wild.
and that's what you
There
did.
was I was there, yeah, I did, Animal Kingdom for a year, which is in Florida, although I was based here in LA, and then Theme Park Productions, which did all the filmed video, 'cause I would assume that I wanted to be in a film and television capacity, so I wound up working on the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the first Haunted Mansion movie, which nobody saw, but that Pirates movie was pretty good, and then,
With the Haunted Mansion with Richard, Benjamin and Paula Prentice?
It was the Eddie Murphy one. So
Okay,
this was 20
I
years
saw
ago.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I saw it, so people did see it. I saw it.
Well, thanks.
I was by myself in the theater, all by myself. Yeah.
Yes. And it was spooky, just being there all alone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but yeah, so I did that, and then realized that it was like a glass, it was like an ivory tower sort of thing. There was no path up. I wanted to develop it as a creative artist, but you're either, so I was there in a support capacity, but there's no path up. These were all experts in their field that come there at the end of their careers or at their peak of their talents. So Universal made an offer, and I went over to Universal as a stage manager, and then wound up managing and producing live shows, and then ended up as a casting director. But about 12 years ago, um, I was always I wanted to be a creative artist, right, in my own right, and write and produce stuff. I found podcasting early, started in 2005, started goofing around, did a show that became very popular called This American Wife, which was a gentle public radio parody podcast. And so that hit big on Apple. I was also doing improv at UCB here in LA. And I loved that because as an actor, I didn't have to memorize any lines.
Yeah.
I could just make stuff up. And then live storytelling was the third piece of that because there's a big live storytelling scene here in LA and in other cities, where you just tell a true story from your life. And you're the underdog, something bad. Everybody's got a few great stories. So I developed that. But then found it was actually through that because we would have a lot of authors on stage, that I was producing a show and hosting. Um, but I found audiobooks through these authors that I was working with, and then realized, it was like, because I remember as a kid, like, books on tape, and I would get them from the library, and I was like, this is bad. I don't like this. It's back in the 80s and 90s. But then listening, in like 2011, 2012, I was like, oh, this is starting to get good, but it could get even better. If we, and so it was about bringing the energy. So very early on, I wanted to bring the energy from improv, from podcasting, and live storytelling, and sort of that passion and energy and conversational style into audiobooks. And so that's been sort of my goal from the beginning, in addition to having a steady gig talking.
Well, outside of the general, audiobook, the standard setup, which is, "Here's a book, you narrate it, send it to us." You've been doing a lot of your own stuff, where you're not only writing your own stuff, you're producing and directing a lot of multi-voice things and adding, um, yeah, sound effects and making it more kinda like a living graphic novel,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
is what I'm
that's right.
getting, and I find that, it's just a it's d when you think audiobooks, you think real specificity, but the world is larger now, and you can start doing the things you're doing. I mean, you're directing these things with John Hamm and Meryl Streep and stuff. How'd all that stuff happen?
Yeah, so I started doing, yeah, multicast stuff, and it was the idea because I came from, basically wanting to do film and television, but knowing that it takes forever, may never happen, is very expensive. But with audio, you can iterate very fast. It's cheap. The listener does the special effects in their mind, so that pays for a lot of it right there. Um, but I was always interested in getting my stuff done and out there quickly, and you can do that in audio. So I started with a podcast. We started doing skets, and then adding sound design to that, big multicast stuff, just in a smaller format. But then realizing, oh, we can do it with, bigger, longer, and we called them audio movies at the time. So I pitched Audible. We had done a series about Vegas with Weird Al and Andy Daly and Rachel Bloom called Hoot Gibson, and it was so much fun. Sort of got my feet wet doing that, and it was about a 2 hour. Basically an audio movie, and then my friend Mike Sachs had written it was a 70s novelization for a movie that didn't exist called Stinker Lets Loose. And basically, it's Every Which Way But Loose meets Smokey and the Bandit, 70s trucker movie. And it's a send up parody of it, but it was as though this movie existed, and here's the novelization.
It's
So
hard to
we
parody a
made,
parody, yeah.
yeah, exactly. It was a little hard to get your head, but you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, this is just Goofus's messing around. So we pitched Audible on doing that, and I was able to get John Hamm and Ray Seahorn from Better Call Saul, the great Philip Baker Hall from Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and just this incredible. And also we stacked it with some audiobook narrators and just my friends from comedy, and that wound up launching Audible Comedy in 2018. Became a New York Times bestseller. So I was so happy to get the paper of record. The New York Times to have to print "Stinker Lets Loose." They had no choice. We we forced them to say that. It made me happy. And yeah, and we did a live show in San Francisco with the full cast. And so I narrated it. John Hamm was Stinker, and Ray from Better Call Saul was the love interest, and we had a live band on stage, and it was just amazing. And then from that, Broadway Video, who does Saturday Night Live and The Tonight Show, they wanted to get into the audio game. So they said, "We've got this series from Kate McKinnon and her sister, Emily Lynn, um, called Heads Will Roll. And we'd like to bring you out to direct it." Um, and so they would fly me out to New York in between, because SNL would go, she was on it at the time, it was 2018, 2019. Um, and they would film for 3 weeks, be dark for 1 week, and we would be in the studio in Midtown. And we said she would play an evil queen, Kate McKinnon, as a sort of evil queen, and we had this big, like, wood paneled studio. She sat in the throne, and we would just bring in people around her, and we just had this crazy. That's where we had Meryl Streep and Peter Dinklage, and it was just this. I would just mostly sat there in awe, like, how is this? How is this real? And it was so much fun, but it took me back. It had the feel of, like, being in, like, in theater, and it felt like we were messing around, goofing around, having a rehearsal, having a play.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so I wanted to sort of, yeah, bring that environment to what we do. And so, yeah, that was that. And then finally, to wrap it all up, I've done a few of those, and then I realized, well, wait a minute, what if I just did my own stuff? And so I started writing my own books, so that it could be my material. I own it. It's not a work for hire. It's just me and my stories that I want to tell, and bring my friends in to tell it with me.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, Eric, but I will say, and I don't know if I have it done, but the last few words you said, it kinda went out like scratchy, like a scratchy voice track, like,
Oh no.
that's what I heard.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
that
Okay. Am I back
and
now?
I
Is
don't
it
hear him
better?
at all.
I'm
Oh
hearing
no.
him fine on my end. I think he's going out to the live stream. Uh,
Okay,
Eric, go ahead and say something.
I'll let Don respond to you, and I'll do this.
So, Eric, you just said repeat the last couple sentences you said there in terms of you decided to do your own thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yes,
what
okay. Just in case, we missed it here. Yeah, so, wanted to do my own thing
no,
and
I
write
don't
my
have a
own
phone.
stories. No,
Well,
go you can't hear
I
me?
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, I love Eric Martin, and I think he's tremendous and a real asset to the community and a good person, um, and apparently I'm the only one who can't hear, at least said it's me, he hear everyone, I'm gonna see if I switch to this, if it makes a difference.
Okay. And Sherry
Hang
says
on.
she can hear everybody. So, Johnny, I'll relay to you. I'll do my mime. This was
Yeah,
Eric, and he was talking about Disney. This is I know.
I guess it's a mime to you too.
Yeah.
Uh, Eric,
Okay.
say something now, I hear this thing.
So, are you hearing it now? Are you hearing Eric now?
He's
Well, I
saying
haven't
something.
talked yet.
No.
Yeah, how about now? Anything?
No, I see his mouth
No.
moving though, which
Okay.
is nice.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody else is hearing him, and we'll see.
I can't believe
We'll
you called me a dirty bastard, Eric. What is that about?
So, Eric, if you were starting over today and you
Yeah.
were talking to or you had a nephew or a niece that was starting, any advice for them?
Wait, if they were starting today?
Yeah, if they want to be a narrator and they want to be a great narrator, would you tell them to
Yes.
take the same path that you took?
No, the same path doesn't exist, but there are still paths available. And I would say, it's since 2011, it's gotten more competitive, um, but not impossible. There's still, at the end of the day, there's still a lot of books, and there's still a lot of opportunities. It does take.
Been kicked
We
out.
lost Don. Oh, there he is. He's back. Um, so it takes. it took me years to make this a full-time career. So I moonlighted. I would do audiobooks at night and on weekends for perhaps longer than I should have, but I did it for years until I could get a sustainable career. So I would say patience is important. What I would say too is, when you're meeting people, I took it sort of slowly, developed relationships, and knew that that it wouldn't happen now, or maybe a few months from now, or years from now, even. Like I finally just, I've worked for almost everybody, and but Simon and Schuster, for example, was the last publisher that I hadn't worked with, certainly of the big five. But uh, I started, reaching out to them in 2011, maybe, and then they offered me my first book with them a month ago. So I just had to
2011.
be
Okay, okay.
patient.
I'm doing the math on that. That's 13 years. And I know that
Yeah,
when you and I were setting this up, I looked at our stream. You and I had a conversation in 2015 because we were both
yeah.
in the business, and we had a conversation on Facebook. And it kind of shocked me that it had been 9 years since we had our original discussion. And so there's a small group of us that have been around 10 plus years, and are still doing this same thing. And you're one of them. I'm one of them. Johnny's definitely been around even longer than the rest of us. He's not hearing us now. He's hearing me though talk about this. So so for the new people, obviously they're not going to take your path. Any advice for them if they're struggling to get in? Who do they do? Do they go what should they do?
Yes. So I started to I answered it in a roundabout way, but I'll dig in here. So first it's building relationships for the long haul. Um, knowing that it's going to take time, being patient, but also get good. And I still do this to this day, but it's training, it's coaching, it's learning new skills, it's learning new accents. Or I started in nonfiction, but I now do almost exclusively fiction these days. Even though I have an acting background, I was still afraid of it until I just started doing them, and then coaching and working with people to get better at it. So where where is the most competitive is in terms of
Hmm.
acting, having those acting chops. So I don't skimp on that. I focus on that. There's a lot of other things to
So
balance,
uh,
but it's important to have that.
So does that mean that so do you get coaching or do you have done coaching or you go to still take improv classes or but you're doing it so much. I mean, that's also a way to refine everything. And if you're directing, you're hearing other people's performance. And I know every time you hear somebody else's, you kind of go, oh boy, I love the way Heller did that. And then you may have one little thing where you think, oh, but in that one area, I might have him do it slightly different, or I might do it slightly different than he does it. I mean, so if you're directing, obviously you're learning what you would do and what you wouldn't do. So that's you have some things that other people won't be able to have access to. So they would need to go to somebody like a Johnny Heller or somebody and get some feedback that you're getting while you're directing. Is that close?
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. Yeah, you can learn a lot from directing. You can learn a lot from getting that coaching in specific in different areas, and then also a great, easy, free way to do it. It just takes time. Is listening. So I still listen to a lot of audiobooks. Um,
So Johnny, so we were talking about
Wait,
Eric's talking about his path there and that he still listens to a lot of audiobooks in terms of learning and his directing. He's learning from directing, but he learns a ton from listening to other great narrators and finding what he likes from them, finding what he doesn't like from them, refining things. You had your hand up there, sir. Would you like to?
I'm Hannah. Well, I'm not gonna. I feel silly trying to join a conversation that I can only hear your part of
Yeah.
it. I'm wondering if I'm gonna leave and come back again. Is that
Okay.
possible?
yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, I'm just gonna let you 2 guys talk because it's just silly. I'm not pretty enough just to sit here and stare at you.
Well,
Well,
you
maybe
are, but
I'm
we're
prettier
not
than
going
you
to have that
guys, but that's
discussion
about it.
online.
I'm
Okay.
gonna leave and come back. I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, I'll just call Eric and have my own conversation with him without you. Okay.
Okay.
Either way, we'll catch you.
Yep, yep. All right, so he'll be back in a second. I'll bring him back in here. Um, But that's really cool. It's the same, young musicians. I listen to so many thousands of hours.
Wow.
I mean, it is funny. You ask somebody, "Hey, how many times have you heard that song?" And they say, "Oh, 50," if they're a young musician. 50. Until you get to, hundreds, you haven't heard that song. I mean, and it's the same with an actor. You must do a lot of this stuff to become really, really great at it, to become strong at it. And let me get Johnny back in here. But so when you're listening to books, do you ever listen to a book more than once?
Uh, my own, if it's multicast, if it's a big project. Um, no, because I mean, with long form narration, I mean, I'll listen. Yeah, you're right. I'll listen to a song a dozen times, many dozens, and some if I love it. But for audiobooks, I tend to want to just be as wide as possible, unless there's a reason to dig down. And because it's so long too. Now, some people love to like they'll listen and re-listen to a favorite audiobook, because it's comforting or they hear new things in it or they just want to spend time with that story. But for me, I just want to get as wide as possible and get. Now I'll certainly stick with narrators if I love hearing from them, because I can follow narrators, and that's certainly true in many cases. If people like the way you tell stories, they'll follow you from one to the next. So that's the way I'll do it. um,
Johnny, we see
yeah.
you're back. Are you hearing, Eric?
No, I'm
Oh,
reminded of
Oh
the
no, I
Woody
hear
Allen
you.
flick, What's Up, Tiger Lil. I see Eric totally involved in doing this, and I
he
wanna
was
put in
hyper insightful.
I wanna put in stupid commentary.
Yeah, no, I
Just
can't hear
put
Johnny.
his
This
voice
is
in there.
sad.
Uh,
Oh, well,
um,
we have something going on today that, we don't normally have, and we're
I
not sure
I
where it
I
is. All
think
all
I
my
think
meters are showing as
yeah,
but I
look
also,
at
I do think the audience, although, I'll get confirmation of this in a second, still can hear all 3 of us, even though we can't hear each other on the back end stuff, so
I think I'm gonna just
Should
allow
I
you
hang up
guys
and
to
come
have a
back in?
lovely conversation
okay.
without me because
Let
what's
me
the
try
point?
that.
I
That
mean,
would just be a fun thing
I
to try.
love Eric, he's good looking, but I'll
See,
look at his website photos. Oh, he
Oh,
left.
no, he left, so he took your lead. You he's going, "Well, so
Well,
let me see,
I
he'll
should
be."
leave too and let Don just talk.
Yeah, that'll
Listen,
there's a
well, if
losing
he comes back and I
proposition.
can't hear him, I will leave so you guys can have a conversation without
Okay,
worrying about
so let's
hearing
see
each
what
other.
yeah.
happens here. I've gotta get him back. He's back
Alright,
in
give us a
terms of
second, Eric.
that.
Gotta let Don plug you in.
Yep, I have to plug him in. There you are, Eric. Go ahead and hold on. I have to get one thing here. There's that, and there's that.
This is how it was done in the early days of radio.
All right, Eric, go ahead and say something.
I'm hopeful. What do we
Oh,
think? Can we hear this?
So, Johnny, are you hearing him at this point? No.
no,
Hear
no,
Johnny.
no, but he's a
Oh,
likable fellow and terribly good looking, so it's
Okay.
not the worst experience I've had. I'm gonna let you and Eric handle
Okay.
this it's
W-
silly to
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
I'll bugger off. Eric,
okay,
thanks
so
for joining
anyway,
us,
so my
and I'll
wife
call
does
you
say
later.
so yeah, they hear all 3 of us, but for
Yeah,
some reason where our
alright, I'll
interconnection
go.
is not
Merry
working.
Christmas, and,
So,
oh, next week, we have, Rosemary Pilcher, you
um,
stay, and,
should I
the week
call
after
him?
that, it's just Don and I. Eric, you stay and talk to Don, but it's silly, I'm just staring at you.
okay. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna go
I'll
record my book.
I'll give you a complete transcript when we're done.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
I can't okay,
Yeah,
bye.
sorry. Sorry about that.
Getting off?
I don't know in live this is what happens occasionally. So, all right, Johnny, we'll talk later. And
Oh man. Okay.
so
Good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He can't hear you anyway, Eric. So if you anyway, we don't know what that is. And that's the one fun thing about doing live. Now we've done 60 of these, and at least the last 20 of them or 30 of them or whatever, all that stuff's been working among all 3 of us. We don't know why today, but life happens. Okay, and the one thing is, we'll have you back this next year. You have so many cool things. Like I could talk to you for about 4 hours on this stuff in terms of some of the other things that you've done and what you're doing and where you're going. So we'll have you back, and we'll have it to where we know that it's working with Johnny and that kind of thing. So anyway, so one of the things, so Disney had to be fascinating. Where do you see the business going based on what you're looking at today? Is it going to be more multicast? How's AI going to affect things? What insights do you have on where it's going and what's happening over the next year or 5?
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't know what's going to happen, and it's changing rapidly. But I've got some ideas and certainly some principles. Yeah. So for audiobooks, I mean, multicast is um, is great. It is, you know. it's not as nearly as expensive as a movie, but it's a lot more expensive than a solo or even a duet narration or dual. Um, so it has to be the right kinds of projects. It has to be sort of because they'll need to reach a wider audience to recoup their investment. But more and more places are starting to do them, and certainly Audible Originals is investing a lot in them. And I love to do it. So I'm doing a trilogy right now in multicast for my own books, but I think my next books will probably just be a solo narration, just because it takes a lot of time and effort and cost. Um,
Well, I have a
but
question
then,
for you. I want to interrupt you on that. Sorry. Can you
yeah,
drill down on this? Um, so let's say I haven't done a multicast before, but I want to be part of it. Are you bringing all the people to Southern California? Are you doing each of them in their own location and putting it all together later? Do you direct, or everybody has a connection to? How does that work? Uh,
yeah.
so tell us a little bit about the process, please.
Sure. It depends on the project, and it depends on the budget. It's the most expensive way to do it, but also the best and most fun is to get everybody in the room together in a studio, which is what we did for in New York with the Broadway production. But lately, and especially it actually started in the pandemic, and my first book was written during lockdown, and we recorded everybody from home. And so I worked with people who had home studios or could approximate them, which cuts down cost. So I would do it one on one, record them one at a time. But the way I like to work is not like animation, where give me three takes of each line. Wherever possible, I'll do them as scenes and be their scene partner, so that because if great actors can sort of manufacture that conversational quality. But why make them work hard if you can just have somebody to read lines opposite and react, and respond? And I can, in my direction, I can kind of hint at through my own, read of the other person's lines, can sort of nudge them in the direction I want to go, just by giving them something to play off of. So that's the way I love to work,
Oh,
to
that's
have them
fascinating. See,
respond to
I never
something.
heard of that's clever. So now you're the
Yeah,
opposite person for them to play off of. That's a beautiful
yeah.
thing. I haven't heard of other people doing it that way. I'm sure there's that does that's just because I don't know. And then is that the future?
Well, I mean, I think it's one part of the future. I think solo narration, based on the cost, and and also just that there's something still powerful about having a solo storyteller sit down and tell you a story, and they're in your ears, and it's a very intimate experience. And there are certain types of projects that are you can expand that canvas and have two or multiple voices. So I hope it continues to grow, because it certainly can be very successful. The problem is it's more expensive. And then AI is the other thing you mentioned. So, I know they're trying to um, push it. I think in general, AI can be sort of helpful tools for things, where appropriate, but I don't know that. Well, I do know that storytelling is not its strength, and maybe it never will be. Um, there's no intention behind that, and I think most listeners still want to have that connection and understand that the person telling them the story knows what they're saying and knows how to portray it, knows how to perform it.
Yeah, it's a different
Um,
field. Sarcasm doesn't come through. There's a lot of underlying things that just don't happen. If you read the words say something, but that isn't always the intent. Or hey, Michael Jackson, name something bad. I think he wanted to put out something that was good, but the word bad has many different contexts, just like, so this is not news to you.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Yeah. So, yeah, for AI, I just like, for example, there is a certain subset of listeners who they'll listen to things at four times the speed or whatever, and they do it while they're running, and they just want the information just channeled into them. Just jack this story into my brain hole and give me it that way. Um, but that's fine. You can make human narration sound bad and fast for them. But you can't take AI narration and make it sound like the guys know what he's talking about. So you might as well just record it with a human, and then you can do what you want with it.
That makes sense. Well, Lisa asked a question here that says, "What are you working on now? What's your passion project here over this next 6 to 12 months?"
Yeah, so I mean, I'm right in the middle, or about to get started on. So this trilogy that I've written is called New Arcadia, and it's a sci-fi comedy series, and it's lit art with hints of lit RPG elements, so a bit of a game world. Basically, it's if you know Ready Player One, the story, so it's kind of a multiverse. This is a little different. This is it's the 90s, and it's in a city and sort of a beat 'em up world. So if you know the old beat 'em up video games, there's an element of that, but it winds up being a place where people come together as a community because it's imagine a near future dystopia where everybody's locked up at home, deadly pandemic. Doesn't sound familiar, but
Yeah.
um, and so this virtual space is where everybody comes together and learns how to communicate and be a community again. So book three is as I just finished writing book three, and I'm about to start production. And this is a big multicast that has, if you know the world of tabletop role playing games, there's a thing called Critical Role, and they're just the superstars in that field. But a couple of those cast members are roles in this book. Matt Mercer and Sam Riegel, and then we've gotten some other like luminaries of the video game world, from the comedy world, and also from the audiobook narrator world. And Johnny was in book one. So this is book three. It's going to end it. The theme for this is morph. So if you know, there was a period in the early 90s where CGI was, they called it morphing, because that was the main thing that it did at the time. So you've got the T-1000, you've got the black or white music video, but also it then developed into Power Rangers. So there's going to be a Power Ranger element to this. And of course, there's going to be emotional morphing as well as the characters grow and learn and come together.
So did you have all three? Like, I don't know anything about writing a series like this. When you start this, do you already have the whole thing kind of planned out to be able to do three parts? If it's a trilogy, do you have the whole thing mapped out from beginning to end before you start writing? At least in a general sense.
Yeah, well, every writer's different. There's pantsers and people who plot out everything. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle, but I had ideas of it, of where it would go, but I left lots of room open for discovery as I wrote and explored the characters. And the way I write is audio first. So if there are any other narrators out there who are interested in writing, um, uh, I wanted to approach it from a position of strength. As I started, with the blank page, it can be terrifying.
Right.
So I imagined it as an audio first production. I cast and also my casting director background. So I literally cast the roles in my head before I sat down to write it, and thought of who would play it, and imagined them saying the words out loud. And a last pass of editing the book was reading it out loud before I went to record it, just to hear what it sounded like, because there are typos you can catch, as we all know, narrating, that don't get picked up.
Right.
A pass out loud, as an author, will take care of that, but also will things that don't sound right or don't sound conversational or sound off. Um, that won't necessarily sound that way on the page because it's a reading is a different process. So speaking it out loud is a great way to get the story. And then for me, imagining it out loud was the way I wrote it.
Yeah. Lisa and I will get frustrated. She'll be working on a book and she'll realize there's an error in it that, had the author read it out loud, would have been obvious, because as soon as she reads it out loud, she's like, wait a minute, that there's no way that makes any sense. And then the dilemma as a narrator, when you're in the middle of a book, you're 8 chapters in, you're 15 chapters in. Do you read what they wrote, which is, sort of, but crap, that doesn't make sense. And now do we go back to them? And then sometimes they're bothered that somebody else didn't catch it and actually almost blame her. But she's just, hey, this is what's there. They're like, well, but I had an editor. And it's like, yeah, I know, but nobody read it out. I mean, we know that no one read it out loud. So that's a
Probably,
big
you're probably
deal.
right.
printed stuff still gets through, and they don't realize that most authors, you're coming at it from a whole different point of view. And yeah, he's so smart to come at it from your strength. And if I hadn't been in one of your productions, how in the world would I get on your radar? First off, you're starting with people that are pretty well accomplished in the business. Do you ever work with some people that are newer, or most of the time you already have the people cast? And if you cast them in advance, you already know about them, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, I work with a mix of people. So I do work with newer and emerging. I coach, folks as well. I don't have as much time as I'd like to coach, but I do. And I listen to a lot. So I get a sense and so as I'm doing a new project, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, and then there are also people that it's like, I'm going to work with you someday. Haven't found it yet. And again, this is me as a narrator. I get that too of like, we'll find something for you,
Yeah.
and it could take 13 years,
Yeah, as
as
you
as,
say.
as we just found out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So do you like people to contact you if they're and let 'em, like do you keep any kind of list of hey, Don wants to be in your thing, and so I've sent you a sample, and then I contact you every week and a half going, Eric, you haven't cast me yet. Is that the right way to do it?
no, that's a great question, and the answer is no, not at all. No, because the way I'm currently set up, because I'm doing, I'm not a production house, and maybe someday I will be, but I'm not producing in bulk, but I'm doing sort of bespoke, projects, maybe one a year, maybe more.
Okay.
I do, have a wide net, but it's ultimately a pretty small company, but which is to say, definitely reach out and say hello, and stay in touch every once in a while. But yeah, just know that I'm not, casting 100 titles a year. It's not like that. I just got my own little, like a, what is it like? I'm not comparing myself in any way other than the model, but Clint Eastwood. They give him a little money every year, and he makes one movie a year, and he's under budget, he's on time, and it's like I like that model. That sounds nice. Like, give me just enough to do my own thing,
Right.
and I'm going to make one thing that I really want to do. Um, you know,
Yeah. And
Often.
do you now this like for example the Simon and Schuster thing? That's the one that came in after 13 years. Is that the one, or is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Now, did you keep in touch with them every couple years, every 6 months? Do you
We
do
do every
reach outs?
quarter. Yeah, yeah. I'll do reach out to. I'll do personalized reach out. But I don't. I don't want to overwhelm. I just want to stay on folks' radar. But I do reach out in a personalized way every quarter. Um, and then occasionally I may reach out to people that I work with frequently if a gap opens up in my schedule, for example. And I have that relationship where they can be like, "Oh, I will think of you, for this." If it's somebody that I don't often work with, I wouldn't be like, "Hey, I'm available next week." But if you've established that relationship, it's worth the ask in the times that you may need it, if it's occasional. Um, but other than that, I just keep a pretty standard, like I have a list of folks that I know I'm going to reach out to, so don't forget them. But I personalize a note to them. Some people like newsletters, many don't. Um, I know I prefer a personal touch because I know the person is interested, cares, has done a bit of research, that they're interested,
Yeah,
really,
yeah. I mean,
which
you
is a
don't want
human
me
thing.
contacting you going, "Hey, I want to do a book on dog training. So just think of me whenever you're doing the dog training thing." And you're like, "Psst,
Yeah.
I don't do
When did I
that."
become the dog training guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so
It's news to me.
hopefully I have some concept of what you're working on and the types of things you like, and I assume that's what you're doing with the people that you're reaching out to. Also, for the audience, last I checked, Eric, you have 400 plus books.
Yeah, it's about 460 right now,
Oh,
and then
yeah,
yeah,
and
I need to update my website. That's a big thing, but it's a nice problem to have if you're too busy to update it. But I do need to. It's
well,
a
whatever.
little.
Okay, but so for perspective though, that just means that you have a lot of people that are listening to stuff that you've done over the last 12, 15 years, and people, so it's easy for people to kind of bump into you on one sense just because you're out there. And then you've also done something with I think, what do you call them? Audio, some New York Times, is that right?
Yeah, the New York Times Audio. So it was a company called Autumn that New York Times purchased a few years back, and I've done almost 600 feature articles for them. That includes New York Times Magazine, The New Yorker, Rolling Stone, Wired, just about a dozen magazines. And these are stories that I would be reading anyway. And so for them to be like, "Hey, do you want to just say it out loud?" Like, absolutely. So that yeah, I
So
love supporting journalism and staying up to speed. So it's a really fun, and they're bite sized. You know, they can be between 20 minutes to, in some cases, a couple of hours. But whenever they come in, I'm always like, oh yes, what a fun change of pace. Like, let me get this in the queue, and that takes priority. And if I'm working on a book, they'll be like, hey, we got an article, and then I'll jump in. Although that business is changing a bit, you know, and I think AI is starting to encroach, and you know the model is sort of shifting, but I'll keep talking as long as they'll have me.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't think most people realize that that's what they're doing. They reached out to a narrator, somebody who's doing this stuff already, and now you have some relationships. How long did it take to establish some of those relationships
Which
for the New
specifically
York
with
Times for the articles?
well,
Or
that was one of the things where they were a startup, right? And here's the thing, because this is a great book. So I didn't reach out to them. They reached out to me because they were looking for the right nonfiction voices to get their project started. It wound up being extremely successful. I had no idea when they reached out, but they had. It was a cold call, and you know sometimes you get offers. You're like, okay, like this seems shady, but this one I was like, this sounds amazing, and if this takes off, this will be incredible. So that was wonderful to get. I forget what I was going to say.
and how long have you been doing it? Just to give for perspective. When
About 8 years. I
Okay,
started. Well, no, maybe 2015 actually. Yeah, 2015,
okay,
2016
yeah, now you're so
started.
cool. Okay, and
Yeah.
do they still reach out to you? Is this something you do 2 a month? Is it still something that happens regularly?
Yeah, I'll do it a few a month. I just did one yesterday for I don't know if I can say, but yeah, it's a new features coming out for this weekend's magazine.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah. Oh, I that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, because it was about because they found me. This is what I think is important for folks. So I treat everything, and you know, the work that we get is of varying quality, depending. Not everything is brilliantly written, and I think we should feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
But I treat everything with the same, and I no matter what it is, I give it my utmost, and make sure that it sounds the best that it can, and that I'm the most connected at all times, which is hard to do. It's a focus muscle that you have to train, but it pays dividends. And so, no matter what it is, you're sounding your best, and you never know who's going to be listening and who might reach out as a result of. 'Cause I get things all the time. I'm like, "You listen to that? Oh, but you liked it. Okay, great."
Yeah.
And I've gotten gigs based on things that I never thought would go anywhere. So that's why I mean, and also just because you're spending your time with it, and that's the most, you know, precious thing you have. So I treat everything. I have a thing on my was treat everything like it's. I won't swear, but treat everything like it's effing Shakespeare. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what I take because you never know who will listen, and where it might lead.
Well, I think your combination of treating every project with care, like you care, like it is important because it's important to somebody at some level. Plus, the listeners certainly quickly pick up on, oh, Don doesn't care about that. That's not something he's passionate about, and Eric's that. But this whole business is all about relationships. I think the people that work the most have developed relationships over time, and you get those opportunities, and obviously you've capitalized on them, treated the people well. Are you one of these? You how when you work your scheduling? So you have book. Do you leave some space in there, knowing that hey, an article could come in? I'm calling it an article, but a feature might come
Mhm.
in, and so that if you have a book due, how do you schedule something when you have so much going on? What's your scheduling process?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's dynamic, you know? I'm fortunate to book out, a few months often, usually, um, but I always try to leave some space, not just for articles, but because rush projects can come up.
Right.
So I expand my windows, um, for things, and then each month or two, I try to leave space for as much as, one full big, knowing that that's probably gonna fill with, "Hey, we've got this audition," or, "Hey, this just," and then it's great when you can, book things out, but then you might not be available for that, cool new thing that they didn't even know they were gonna, do. So after doing this long enough, I started realizing like I can probably book enough things that come up.
Right.
So, and I don't want to lose out on it. So it's a balancing act. I actually came part of what I did at Universal for years was schedule a department of 200 people. So it helped to have those skills. And now it's just me, one book. It's still about as hard
Yeah.
because of all the different publishers. But yeah, you kind of need those administrative skills or hire somebody who is excellent at it.
Yeah,
Y-
yeah,
y-
yeah.
y-
Well, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't understand. We are all running our own business. And so they come, I want to be a narrator. Fantastic. I want to be a voiceover artist. Fantastic. They don't realize that, yeah, I'm not until you've been around, maybe established and you have a whole crew, but you are responsible for the scheduling. You are responsible to make sure you're turning in things on time. You're responsible for, hey, this computer's getting kind of old. I need to be budgeting this next year for a new computer. I mean, you're the logistics, and there's a bunch of things that go on beyond the fun stuff, which is the performance. Uh,
Yes. Absolutely agree. I would say for newer or developing narrators,
mhm.
the good news is you don't have to figure this all out right away as you start. It can be a very dynamic process and iterative, so you don't have to invest everything all at once.
Yeah,
But as you go and as you get projects, I started off recording, for example, in a closet, like with a blanket over my head for perhaps longer than I should have. But for until I was like comfortable of like, okay, I know this is a sustaining thing. Let me get a booth, or let me get that next piece of gear.
right.
So and then but then figuring out all this stuff, it does take time. And I make some mistakes along the way. And sometimes I think what's most important in for viewers, especially as you're developing, like, you will make mistakes. What's important is how you, and it could be like scheduling, like, oh, this, I missed this due date. I thought it was this. That's happened to me when I was starting out. And what made the difference was that I was like, I'm so sorry. I thought it was this. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. I take this, and they knew based on my response that I took it seriously and that I'd learned from the mistake, and they were
Right.
happy to give me the next project right after that. So just know that you will make mistakes and you'll learn, but what's important is how you respond and how you incorporate it into your workflow going forward.
Yeah. I think almost anybody, where we have something, the product doesn't work, and we go back, and as long as they make good on it, I mean, we're not happy about having problems, be it with whatever we do or the people we work with, but how they respond is just absolutely critical to whether we ever work with those people again. So someone like you now, but you're obviously taking a very mature approach to that. Do you have people that you've worked with that? Oh, so Lisa's asking a question. What are your
Oh, yeah.
favorite? So, what are you listening to? What are your favorite audiobooks to date?
Ooh, that's a good question. I should have this ready to go. Um,
So, if I was going to
uh,
listen to only like the top five of your things that you are the most proud of, do you have some things that you really like that you did?
oh, well, in terms so I'll give you from me, but then also just what I've
Cool.
listened to that I've loved. Um, I so I think Heads Will Roll I'm most proud of. I'm in it a little bit. That's the Kate McKinnon audio movie thing we did for Audible Originals. I'm really proud of that and that cast and the
Can
way it
you
came
tell me the
together.
name of that project?
Yeah, Heads Will Roll.
Heads will roll.
And
I'm going
it
to find that and
yeah,
put it in the chat. Go ahead.
Um, and then for solo narration, um, this is coming out next year. I think I can talk about it. It's for the New Yorker. We just did a selection of a century of fiction, and they're some of the best short stories of the last 100 years. And so I was able to do a few stories and that, and working with just authors that I've loved my whole life. I did a Jack Reacher book, which was
Oh,
amazing. I loved, and I'll tell you this. Well, but just as a quick aside, um, and this may be helpful for listeners. I wasn't. I wanted to do thrillers. I wasn't doing thrillers. I went on to ACX and got a book. It didn't sell very well, but it was something that I could show as a hey, this is I can do these kind of books. And I sent that out to publishers, and then within 2 years, I was doing a Reacher book. Um, so I sort of made my own opportunity there because I wasn't getting those books, so I found one. So think about it that way. And then for others, God, I am listening to. Um, I sort of toggle between audiobooks and podcasts right now, so I'm in a big um, um, podcast thing at the moment. But in terms of audiobooks that I love, oh man. I listened to Grover Gardner's narration of all the Lyndon Johnson, the Robert Caro books. Those are, I'm a big history nerd, so those were amazing. And then Robertson Dean did The Power Broker, also Robert Caro. I just think he's an amazing author, and those narrations are incredible. They're 70 hours long, so you have to have some patience. In terms of shorter things, what did I just listen to? Gosh, I'm afraid I'm blanking.
that's okay.
I've been in a podcast slump for a while, but
And
but
heads will roll. I've got that.
oh, I do have one.
Go
One
for it.
that I just listened to that is wonderful. It won the Audie for best audio drama. Felicia Day's Third Eye. If you haven't listened to it, it's great. It's similar to what I've done. In fact, the post team that did that has done my stuff as well, and they did incredible work again. And she wrote this multicast thing, and she's sort of the chosen savior who in a fantasy world and screwed up, and she gets a second chance to fix things, and it's just wonderful. Third
I
Eye.
just found it, and I'm throwing the link in the chat so that people have that if they want to grab that. There's the Third Eye, Heads Will Roll are both up there, and anything else you want? So we're wrapping up here.
Oh
Anything you
yeah.
want to promote for the future? That cool stuff that you would like to talk about that you think people should know about, and fun facts about you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in the middle of this stuff right now. So next year, that Century and New Yorker comes out and there's other incredible narrators on that as
How
well.
would I follow you?
Oh, you can find me at ericjasonmartin.com. Uh, and Eric Jason Martin is also on X, although he does not pay attention to it anymore. He's on Blue Sky now, although I haven't really gotten that rolling.
Um,
And then Facebook. You can find me on Facebook
I
as
want to make
well.
sure that I get did I spell your name
Yep,
correctly?
that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Every once in a while I'll typo something. No, I want to make sure I get that right. So, and what we will do, because first off, Johnny's always a riot, and so we will have you back here. We're gonna reschedule you for a couple months from now, and have you back again, and with Johnny here as well. So it's even more fun. But I mean, man, hats off to you. I love your backstory. Um, I think people don't realize how much effort somebody like you has put in cumulatively over the years. So your overnight success is the result of doing the right things earlier in life, working it like crazy, continuing to listen, and then continuing to grow. And you're an inspiration to so many of us. So hats off to you. Anything else you want to promote here for moving forward?
No, just New Arcadia 3 be next year. And I want to promote the fact that I had a delightful time on the show.
Well, great. We're super happy. Hey, every once in a while, listen, this has not happened where, Johnny couldn't hear us over the last 45 shows, but life happens and there's all sorts of stuff that's going on. So really appreciate you being here. And it's always be sure to check out vojumpstart.com. There is a webinar with Johnny coaching people that you can get, and it's crazy. It's a lot less. And then, of course, you should check him out for private lessons and cool stuff that he has coming along there. And VO Jumpstart's got a lot of good stuff and resources for you if that helps. Check out johnnyheller.com. Be sure to check out Eric's site. The link is definitely in the chat there. And we're super excited about you. Share, like, comment. and put this out to anybody that you think of. We're really happy to have you. And if I don't see you, we're back next week. All right, every week, every Tuesday, same time, same bat station. For those of you old enough to know that reference, have a fantastic week. And as always, we'll see you on the wires. Bye bye.